Welcome to the Own Your Power series, how to be a badass at training your body, mind, and soul to create the life and legacy of your dreams. I'm your host, Crystal Jackson, former pro athlete turned wife, mom, gym owner, and entrepreneur. Today, my guest is Katie Garces. I felt called to connect with her, and when I did and found out she was on sabbatical, it was a must to interview her. I knew she would be able to share with us some amazing words of wisdom of why she was taking time off. Plus, she has a powerful stand for us to achieve spiritual wholeness and make the decision to change our life now. Katie is a nurse practitioner and certified nutritional therapy practitioner, blending her professional background in traditional healthcare, wellness, nutrition, her passion for the healing power of spiritual wholeness for women and men across the country. Katie examines how our spiritual and emotional barriers have a direct effect on our relationships with our body. In our interview, we talk about how she went from a nutrition coach to a holistic spiritual coach and how there was much more than just the nutrition aspect for people to be happy in life. We talk about how she believes everyone must have a sexy, spiritual, and sane life. She shares how to find something to be grateful for with your body every single day, and how anytime we start with gratitude, it is the best way to start our day. We talk about how to intuitively train to fuel your body and get the most out of your training and your soul. She shares about spirituality and how to ask from a place of gratitude and surrender. And then you get to ask and be patient to receive and be open to hear all the answers. We talk about how she makes decisions with a little prayer and thought to trust herself in her decisions, and find out how we get to be sane and why this part is a must so you can be the best mom, wife, entrepreneur, and human being ever. And lastly, find out why she is taking a sabbatical to go within and listen to what is next for her. Welcome everybody to the Own Your Power series. My name is Crystal Jackson. I'm your host, and today I'm so excited about our guest. Her name is Katie. Katie, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yes. Well, I know you have a lot to share with us. So share with us a little bit about your journey, how you're here today taking a stand for women, and just a little bit about Katie.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm a nurse practitioner. That was sort of my first career, if you will. And then I had twin boys almost 8 years ago. And around that time, I was kind of trying to figure out, did I want to go back to, the medical world? Did I want to do something else? I'd gotten really interested in nutrition. And so I kept working as an NP, but also went back and got my certification in nutrition and started my own business at that time and became a nutrition coach and did that for, well, I guess I continued to do that, but that sort of nutrition coaching really evolved relatively quickly into more of holistic coaching, wellness coaching, life coaching, because as I heard both personally myself and my clients were kind of going through life and all the changes that come, it became really clear that the nutrition piece was a lot more than just a yes-no food list or a diet dogma to follow, that there's a lot more to it for most of us. And we needed to start sort of peeling those layers and see what else is going on, and that we need to have balance. I mean, our nutrition can be perfect, but if everything else is a mess, then it really doesn't matter how perfect we're eating, because we need to hit all the aspects of our life as women, especially as women. So that's really evolved into sort of a little bit more of a life coaching, almost spiritual coaching type practice that I do now.
I'm so glad you shared that, because most people, especially here we are in the beginning of the year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And most people are like, yes, I'm going to get into my workouts. I'm going to eat clean or, eat quote unquote perfectly. And it's like, I've done that and it didn't work. And you've done that, it didn't work. And your clients, it's like, there's so much deeper than just train your body and fuel it properly. Like, there's such a deeper side to it. What were some things for your clients that came up? Like, why was it, what were the emotional struggles that they have gone through?
Right. Well, I think, like you said, it didn't work. And for a lot of people, it works temporarily, or it works until it doesn't work. And that's because most of the diets and programs out there are pretty darn rigid and pretty darn strict. And I talk a lot about eating intuitively with my clients and my work, because that honestly is the only thing that ever ended up working for me. It was finally releasing all those chains of diets and yes, no's and all that, and really starting to get back in touch with what my body wanted and listening to my body, which was like a foreign concept because I trusted all the outwards, diets and professionals and experts for so long that I'd forgotten what it was like to really listen to my body. Yeah. And so I think everything works until it doesn't work. And then we kind of are left with this sense of failure and even shame. And because why can't I do it? Why did I give up? What happened to my willpower? And so we feel bad about ourselves. And then that usually sort of, especially if you're anyone, even remotely, at risk for going down like the emotional eating road, then we sort of fill that void and that shame with eating. And so we find ourselves sort of on this diet roller coaster and looking for the next thing to be our quick fix. So I think for a lot of us, that's why it doesn't work, is that we're gung-ho, like you said, beginning of the year, beginning of the diet, and we're going to do this. And then it's so strict that we only have so much willpower, and our body needs to be fed. It needs the amount of calories and the amount of nutrients, micronutrients that it needs before it's just like, okay, I'm going to eat all the things, because we can't restrict forever. We just can't. That's not how we're made. And so that's, I think, one of the biggest pieces was that so many of these things are too darn strict. But then, like I was saying, if there are other issues going on, stress from work, relationship issues, you're not sleeping well, you're over exercising, all of that can catch up with you as well. And so we have to look at all of those pieces. And so each woman that would come through my door, it was a little bit different, or maybe it was a combination of all of the above. So I would kind of have them go through this like 8-point sort of general life scale and score themselves. And if anything was like 3 or less, then we knew that was something that needed sort of immediate attention. And the other ones, if it was like 3 or above, we're like, okay, you're doing good. We might be able to tweak that in the future, but let's start with these like lower scoring issues of areas of our life. And so we could hit all of them in order to make the ultimate goal of, maybe losing weight or feeling fit more successful and more likely to be sustainable.
Yeah, no, that's powerful. I love that you talk about willpower too, because willpower, well, there's a book even called Willpower Doesn't Work. And then there's only so far you can go when you restrict yourself. I mean, it's insane. Like if you tell yourself, okay, I'm not going to eat pizza, you're going to obsess about the pizza.
Exactly.
Until you have the freaking pizza. And then guess what? You're not just going to have one slice. You're going to have like a whole pizza.
Right.
I love pizza, and I have no problem like with it. I mean, back in like when I was playing volleyball, I was so strict with what I ate and miserable inside. I was actually just sharing this with my friend this morning. She knew me at that time. And I was like, I don't even know if you knew this, but I was so hard on myself. Mm-hmm. And like we were talking about how I was always on a cleanse, and I would restrict. And I weighed my heaviest because I was like emotionally beating myself up inside, and was like, I'd freak out if I had like a little bit of ice cream. Right. Like it's so much more than that. Right.
And the stress of that. So even if you're eating a low calorie, restricted diet, if you are constantly in a state of stress, which we are, or beating ourselves up or constantly obsessing about what we should or shouldn't eat, I mean, that is a low grade cortisol state, and cortisol is a fat storing hormone. And when our cortisol is up, we are unable to lose fat. That's a fact. So even if we're working, eating super strict, but we're stressed out about it, beating ourselves up about it all the time, it's not going to be successful. So you hit the nail on the head there.
Yeah. And it's not a fun way to live life, honestly. Like I think about the person I am today, and I believe I'm pretty fun. I was not fun back then, like 10 years ago. I was just like a stress case. When I go out, I was like, I couldn't even just eat, it's okay. Like it was a little bit, it wasn't perfectly organic, and I would like freak out. Right. And I know there's like not to go down this rabbit hole, but there is an epidemic of people freaking out because it's not organic. And I used to be that person. Now I'm like, it's okay. But when I can't control it, 95% of the time, I'm going to do what I can.
Exactly. Yeah. All we can do is our best with what we have and what our situation is. And I would say, if you mess up or you feel bad or you maybe overate a little bit, you're like, okay, you know what? I did that. Let's move on. That's we need to catch ourselves, because when we start to spiral, oh, well, I ate like crap, so I'm going to eat like crap my next meal, and then the next meal, and all of a sudden a month's gone by and you've put on 15 pounds. You're like, what happened? So it's catching ourselves in that spiral and just letting it go, and maybe even just getting a little curious about what happened to maybe have us eat that meal that didn't maybe serve us, and just treat it almost like a data point. Like, oh, you know what? I got in a fight with my husband earlier today. Like, no wonder I overate such and such. Noted. I'm moving on. Next chance to eat. Start. So there's always a chance for a fresh start. Every single meal is a chance for a fresh start. So I think that's one of the biggest things, is to prevent ourselves from spiraling.
Love that you share that, because that's so true, where you can go down the rabbit hole of like, I already feel like crap. I'm just going to keep going. And then here you are, even more unhappy than you were before.
Exactly.
Well, let's shift a little bit. I know you have this amazing program, Sexy Hold on. Spiritual, insane. I had to remember the second one. Sexy, spiritual, insane. What is that? And I want you to share with us all about it, because just the three words really speak to me. As a woman, we always want to feel sexy, whether it's for ourselves, our partner, or just in general. And then spiritual, obviously, like I love God and spirit and universe. And then we have to be Satan. Let's be real.
You got it, sister. So it's actually not a straight up program. It's kind of just my philosophy. I just call it my trifecta. And I have a private women's Facebook group that's open to anybody, just kind of a safe place where we can embrace all three of those. So for me, I tend to develop things that I see there's a lack of, or something that I would want for myself. And so this was several years ago, and I look on Facebook groups, support groups, and there would be like super spiritual groups, right? Where, all you could talk about was like spirit and stuff. And then there'd be super like mommy groups where all they were doing was complaining about their husbands, and they couldn't wait for their 9 o'clock and like, or bitching about their kids. And, but God forbid you use the word God. Right. And so I was like, what? We all need all of these components. We are all of these components. And I wanted a place where we could have all of them in one place. And so sexy, like you said, and for me, sexy, I really define that as how you want to feel in your own skin, no matter what your pant size is, no matter what the number on the scale, if you're way you want to feel. And for me, that's strong. It's sort of light and agile. It's energetic. It's feeling light as opposed to like heavy and weighed down and like sort of lethargic. So that to me is what sort of determines that sexy piece. And then the spiritual is really finding out what that means to you, to the individual, because a lot of us are raised in a religion or an experience that maybe they don't necessarily connect with. And so they feel like it's that or nothing. And so they kind of come into adulthood without having that spiritual connection. And I really invite people to get curious and find out what that might be for them. And it can look totally different than what they were raised with. It can look totally different than what their parents, do. And all of that's okay if it's working for you. So I like to use the analogy like plugging into your spiritual power outlet. And so many of us are not plugged in, and when we are plugged in, things flow, things are, in the flow, as opposed to sort of restrictive and forced. And we don't want to live life that way. And we don't have to live life that way. When we are everything's in synchronicity and things are just flowing, when we are connected to our source, when we're connected to God, spirit, ourselves, there's a huge disconnect for so many people between sort of our intuition, our heart, and our heads. And most of us spend most of our time in our heads. So doing things that can kind of drop us out of our head into our self, into our intuition, into our spirit, which connects us to our greater source, whatever that may be for you. So I think for a lot of women, that's totally unheard of, or that's not for me. But until they sort of find that for themselves, they're missing out on a lot of life and a lot of connection with themselves. So that spiritual piece is huge. And then the same piece, like you said, especially as women, we are multitaskers and we have 8 balls in the air at all times, and we are taking care of kids and families and jobs and, schedules. And so it is possible to continue to do that and to do that well, without totally losing our minds and without totally being so stressed out that we have to run to the wine every single night at 5 o'clock, or, that we're constantly snapping at our husbands or whatever it is. And so I think Yes, totally. It is possible, I think, for all three of those things to be in balance. They may not always be in exact balance. It's kind of a give and take. But the biggest thing is that we're aware of it, and we're aware when sort of our bucket, if you will, is a little bit lower in one of those areas. And so when we can maybe focus on, okay, I need to breathe. I need to take an hour out with a cup of coffee in my calendar and just get this together. Or maybe I need to go breathe and do a meditation and really sort of connect with source and connect with myself so I can manage all these things. Or, wow, I'm feeling really yucky all of a sudden. I think I need to just go for a walk and move my body. And so it's a place where people can come and talk about their husbands, what's working, what's not working, share inspiration, share, a new workout or a new recipe or a new awesome book or podcast they listen to that really jazzed them up. So it's really encompassing all three things in order for us to be the best versions of ourselves that we can as women.
I love all of it. And I want to start with the sexy part first and dive deeper in that.
Yeah.
I think as a woman, and I'll be honest and share, like there was a lot of my life that I actually never felt like a sexy woman. And so I love that you're talking about, it doesn't matter about the size. It's really just about how you feel in your skin. What I hear you say is confidence, like just having confidence and knowingness and creating your worth of like who you are as a person. So what are the things that you help these women, how do they embody sexiness if they're just not even happy with the, like being in the skin that they are.
Right. I think there's a couple things that we do. One of them, and it sounds a little cliche, but is to really start with some gratitude. Find something about your body. And it's amazing how hard this is for a lot of women.
Yeah.
Find one thing that you are grateful for, that you like about your body. And I've had many clients who, when we start, have not been able to come up with one thing. But it's really all about perspective. And, if you can wake up in the morning and be like, I'm so glad that my heart is still beating and that I'm breathing, or I'm so glad that my legs are strong enough to walk up these 2 flights of stairs to get my baby, or that my arms are strong enough to carry my children, or whatever it is, we have to start somewhere. And anytime we start with gratitude, our vibe, everything just kind of raises a little bit. So that's always a good place to start if you're just feeling really down on yourself physically, is like find 1 or 2 things that you are grateful for, and find 1 or 2 things every single day. And then the next thing I think
real quick though, I want to interrupt, because I think what you said earlier was so valuable, that most women, it's hard for us to even find one thing. And I think that's something really for everybody to look at. Like, instead of us beating ourselves down, what if we could rise each other up, and like what you're doing? I mean, you're literally, first of all, I want to make sure we get the link for everyone to join your group if they want to, and you guys but you guys could. But meaning, like, why wouldn't we look at ourselves and like be the beautiful gift that we are?
Right.
And
Right.
instead of beating ourselves up because our legs aren't, the biggest thigh gap possible, it's like, what if we just, like you said, I'm so grateful that I have legs today, or arms, or my eyes, like people that don't have these things,
Exactly.
that would pay millions and millions of dollars to have them.
Right. That's so
Yeah.
true. So true. And it really does just put things into perspective. And it gets us out of our mind that can be so, we can be so hard on ourselves and so petty with ourselves. So we would never talk to anybody sometimes the way that we speak to ourselves. So I think that's just a really important reminder. And then I think like physical movement, I know this is a big one for you, like anything you can do to start getting your blood pumping, your limbs moving, will help. I mean, we all know the benefits of exercise mentally. So even if you can get out, I'll say just start with 10 minutes a day, anything you can, even if it's walking 10 minutes a day, and building on that can help us it starts to help us feel better in our bodies. Our bodies start to crave it. And then we typically can build on that and, find what we like to do. I also suggest to women, like, let's say you've been a CrossFitter forever and for some reason it's not serving you. I use this example because this happened to me. I was a CrossFitter. It served me well. My body was really ripped and lean. And then it kind of, like we were talking about before, like it worked until it didn't.
Yeah.
I couldn't let it go. I was like, I can't break up with CrossFit. Like CrossFit made me what I thought I wanted to be. And then after a few years, it was too much on my body. And my cortisol was up and I was gaining weight, but I was just like, okay, I'm going to CrossFit harder. No. We need to listen to our bodies, and it's okay for things to change. It's okay for our workouts to change. It's okay for our diets to change. This happened to me with paleo. I was like this strict paleo girl, super carb. And again, that worked for me until it didn't. And I had to start listening to my body. And it wasn't until I added those carbs back in, it wasn't until I took down the intensity level of my exercise that I was able to lose weight, which is a little counterintuitive, right? Because we're all raised with like harder, more, faster, lower carb. But that's not always the case, especially for women, especially with hormonal changes. And so really finding what feels good in your body and that you enjoy physically. So I went from like CrossFitting and heavy lifting to doing like bar and yoga for a while. And that, again, I was like, oh my God, like how can I only be lifting 3-pound weight instead of like deadlifting double my body weight or whatever, But so it was mental blocks here that I had to get past, because my body was asking for that. And my body felt so much better. The weight that sort of stress weight again was able to release. And just know that everything's going to change and we don't have to hold on with a death grip to things that may have worked for us in the past. And so finding something you love first and foremost to get your body moving, that you feel good. Like with bar, like I felt like, oh, I feel actually feminine. I felt sexier than like, throwing around weights in the gym. And not that there's anything wrong with throwing around weights in the gym. I loved that for like 6 or 7 years. I felt really strong. But then I was ready to start feeling just a little bit lighter and feminine and more like the stretching piece and all that. And so that's what made me feel better in my skin. And so just being okay with those changes and being willing to try them out.
And bar is no joke. I've done it and I was like, oh, I got this. Like I've played a high level. I've lifted my whole life and I was dying in that class. I'm like, oh my gosh. I mean, it burns. But I love, more importantly, what I hear you saying is do what fuels your body. around physical activity, and everybody has it like, I hate running, for example, right? I hate running, and then they go out and they like force themselves to run and then they're miserable. It's kind of the same thing as intuitive
Yes.
eating, what I hear, like intuitive training. If you love to rock climb, go rock climb. If you love yoga, if you love cycling, triathlons, running, whatever it is, lifting, like I love lifting, but you're right. There's been a point in my life where I was like, I need to like drop in and do some yoga. I need to kind of soften it up and do yoga because I could lift weights every day. I love it.
Right. Right. And I think I love that the fact that you use like intuitive training as a term. I think especially as women, we are more intuitive. We're more gray area. We're less black and white. That's a very masculine thing. And we have components of that, but like when we are able to be like, okay, what does my body need right now? And to indulge in that and to give it that, like we can be so much more, we feel better mentally, we feel better physically. And when we honor what our body's asking for, I feel like it kind of pays us back. And so I think anytime you can really tap into what your body's asking for, especially as women, I mean, it's just so beneficial for us.
Yeah, love it. There's another point you were going to say about the sexy part, and it totally interrupted you. And if you don't remember it, that's okay too.
I don't remember, sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Well, let's talk about the spirituality part. And if you remember, we'll come back to it. But, diving in more spiritually, because a lot of people think it has to be a religion. And like you said, it has to be exactly what we grew up. I would, Christian young girl or whatever. But what's your dive deeper into that of, really connecting with your higher being and God, creator, universe, spirit, whoever it is for each individual.
Right. I think so. I'm Catholic and I was raised Catholic. And so for most of my life, I felt like it was like this way or no way. Right. And, everyone hears about the Catholic guilt. And if you're not being that way, then it's wrong. And so because of that, I didn't feel like I had a big connection. And I just, I would go to church, maybe not all the time, but I wouldn't get anything out of it. And so I kind of came to this point in my life where I kind of consider it sort of a spiritual, fork in my road, where enough things were going on with me, both physically and with personally, that I was like, I needed more. And I always suggest people, like when you get to that place, if you feel like you're in a low place or a place where you need clarity, to really just ask from a place of gratitude and a place of surrender, like whoever, whatever, bigger power source, whatever it is that you may or may not even believe in, ask. This load is too hard for me to carry. I don't know what to do. I know I need more. I feel that there's more out there and I really like to connect to it and just kind of give it up. And I did that. I remember I was like laying in a yoga class at the end of class in Savasana, just like tears streaming down my face. It was just such a low point. And I was just like, I can't do it anymore. Like I need help. And it wasn't like a lightning bolt, but it was a very gentle, I was able to look over maybe the course of 2 or 3 months. I was able to look back and be like, wow, like I had things kind of came into my lap or into my life that I maybe would not have entertained before, that helped me sort of build some of my own personal spiritual depth. And so I truly believe the universe has our back and wants to help us. And so, but we got to ask. And so even, like I said, even if you don't 100% believe, just ask. Just what can it hurt, right? So just ask and then be patient. I always just say like ask and then be patient and wait and say, like, for some people it is feel like a lightning bolt, like a book will literally fall off the shelf and they'll read it and be like, oh my God, this changed my life. And for some people it's a little bit more slow and gradual, but be open to those things when you're kind of seeking and searching. And I tried everything. I was doing different meditation classes and techniques and until I found what worked for me. And just like everything else we've been talking about, those changed over the years. And so eventually, fast forward, 4 years or so, I've been able to find a version of my religion, Catholicism, that works for me. I've dropped the guilt. Have a relationship with him, and that he's not too worried if I'm not following every single exact rule of the Catholic Church. For anybody listening, this is just me. I'm trying not to anybody or anything, but this is just me and my experience. And because of that, I have a much deeper relationship with my faith and my religion. I also have really cultivated my spiritual component too, because yes, there's religion and we can go to church and we can do those things, but also being spiritual we are spirits, right? We are spiritual beings having a physical experience. And so we're spiritual all the time. And so that's sitting here, talking to you, it's hopping off the phone, off this interview and not just going directly to my phone and checking things. It's how present are we? How much are we paying attention? I saw a quote last week that I loved, is if you're not a spiritual person if you're not present. There's a
Love that.
being present, paying attention, noticing all the beauty that's around us, even on a stark cold winter day outside, like just paying attention, noticing those things. And I feel like the more we can just be present and be with ourselves and notice all of these things around us, the more connected we become. The more we start noticing books that, oh, maybe I should read that, or, a blog post that you wouldn't have even noticed before, and then it really like opens your eyes, or people that come into your life. You're just more open to these things that can really deepen your spiritual growth, open your eyes to things. And so it's very unique. It's very individual, but I think just kind of asking, decide you're going to seek it, decide you want it, you're curious. And things kind of start to start to show up for you.
I 100% agreed. And I shared this with you, and I'll share with everyone. I remember it was March, and it was like and I grew up very Christian, moved away from it. And then it was like March of 2018, it was like, I need to start praying. And so when you talk about, I'm sharing this so that everybody can hear, I literally was like, okay, I don't know what to say. Hands together. I don't even know what to say. So I'm just going to start. So again, I love the word intuitive for you. It's like intuitive spirituality. It's like intuitive praying or connecting with God's spirit universe. Cause it was like, I just knew I had to start, and I didn't know what I was doing. And then now, multiple times throughout the day, praying, connecting with God, for me, my personal relationship with God. And even my biggest fear was, if I started praying, would my husband still love me the same? And then he started praying. And so it was just like, and this is not, again, it's not even a religion. It was just more of a spiritual connection with our God, who we believe is like, the higher power for each individual person. So I love every religion. I always like to say that, because it's like, you have to find what's true for you. And some people feel their best when they're going to church every Sunday in a certain religion. Some people, it's meditation gardens, you know what I mean? And doing their like prayer and meditation there. It's just got to be for each person.
Yes, absolutely. And I love that you shared that, because I don't think that you had shared that with me, but I love you had that intuitive hit to start praying. It came from somewhere. And even though you had no idea what to do, because I think that was like, could be your fork in the road. You could have been like, no, I got this hit, but I don't know what to do. I'm scared. I'm not going to do it. That could have been one path you took, but you decided to step into it anyways and be like, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know what to say.
It'd been like over 10 years since I'd prayed. So seriously, like, I don't know what to do.
Yeah, but I'm honoring this intuitive hit I got, and I'm going to go for it. And then like, look what's come from that for you. And so I guess that would be this message to people is like, if you're feeling any call, if you're feeling any sort of second guess or tap on, I call it like a shoulder tap, like you're already starting to wake up, and you don't have to know what it looks like. You don't have to know what path it is. They say, start walking and the path will appear. And I truly believe it. I've seen it with myself. I've seen it with my clients. And it sounds like you're another example of it. So I think that can really be the basis and the foundation for transformation in all areas of your life. I don't think, had I not sort of started my spiritual journey, would I have come to the piece I have with food, for example, with the intuitive eating piece, like it would never have come there, because I was just still so black and white, and I was in so much control. And that's a big piece of the spiritual, really being okay, releasing some control and letting go and just trusting, because we think we're all in control. We have a death grip on everything. And when we can just surrender a little bit, exhale and trust that our higher power is working for our higher good. It's such a relief, first of all. And then it's amazing what can happen. When we're holding on so tightly and when we're tunnel visioned on things, we can't see all the millions of other opportunities that could be like glaring us in the face, but we're so focused and we're so in control here that we can't see them. And so when we can let all that go, surrender, and just sort of open our eyes to the world, it's like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, I never thought about that. And all of a sudden, like, and it gains momentum, and it's a beautiful thing.
I always say, like, there's so many opportunities and miracles every day. And you just said it. Most of us walk around like this instead of just like open up. Like, what if you just did the what if game? Like, what if someone would buy me a coffee today, and then boom, they buy you, randomly. I don't know. You just never know. Like, just have fun with it and connect. But it's a lot. What you said about trusting and surrendering, those are two of the hardest things that people will not do, because they want to control everything. Even my husband going through this process, one day I remember him saying he's like a massive controller, and he's like, I'm going to stop controlling. and I'm just going to trust, and I'm just going to be guided. And I'm like, holy cow, who's this person? Like, what's going on right now?
Wow.
But he had his own
Yeah.
spiritual awakening, and it was powerful though. But it's that I believe that when we step deeper into faith, we're actually really learning the most about ourselves and trusting ourselves. Like we are learning what that means to have my voice, my intuition, and say yes or no, and know that I've made the best decision.
Right. And I think the more you do that, it's almost like practice is perfect. The more you do that, the easier it is to make those intuitive decisions and to feel really good about them. I remember, taking weeks to make decisions and beating myself up and losing sleep over decisions and what should I do? And now it's like, I will make a decision after a little bit of thought and prayer or meditation. And if I make that decision, I know right away if it's not right. Like I can feel it and I'm like, nope. And then I go, make the decision that feels right. It's some skill that's been honed that I didn't have before.
Love that.
Yeah.
So how do we wrap it all together with being sane? How do we get to not freak out, a mom entrepreneur that has a vision and dream, but we also want to be a mom at home, just one scenario because we're both moms.
Right. I mean, yeah, the sanity piece can get out of control pretty quick. I think if you've got like this nice spiritual foundation that we've been talking about, that definitely helps because we can be more present and more mindful as opposed to, as women, we're multitaskers by nature, but they say there's really no such thing as multitasking. Like our brain can really only do one thing well at a time. And even though we think we're being really effective and productive by having 20 tabs open on our computer and cooking dinner and, paying the bills online, I don't know, we're really not. And so to be able to just like take a deep breath, slow down, be really focused and really mindful on one thing or, what we're doing, that can, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it's as productive, it's actually going to be more productive because we're going to get that done. We're going to get it done well, and we're able to move on to the other thing. I think a really important piece of the sanity and something that a lot of moms and a lot of women in general aren't very good at, and it's gaining a little bit of notoriety now, but it's that self-care thing. And I know it's like the buzzword right now, self-care, but you guys have probably already heard this a ton, but if we're not taking care of ourselves, there's no way we can show up as the best version of ourselves, the best mom, the best partner, the best business person, the best athlete, whatever it is, if we're not first taking care of ourselves. So we really do need to prioritize ourselves, our self-care, our health, our mental health. And so whatever that means, like I've literally had to like prescribe, for lack of a better word, like some of my clients, you need to go get a manicure this week or a massage or a facial or whatever it is that, they enjoy. Like tell your husband I told you have to, it's part of your homework. Yeah. Surprisingly enough, the husband's like, yes, please go do it. I've been telling you that for years, and it's amazing because we feel so guilty if we're not putting others first. But when we start to put ourselves first and we can really just enjoy 45 minutes or an hour of someone taking care of us or us loving up on ourselves, like it's amazing how like goes out into all these other areas of our life. And so self-care is huge. I try to do something self-care a day for myself, whether it's a 10-minute thing, a coffee with a girlfriend, whereas I used to kind of cut that stuff off because I didn't think I had time. And it wasn't until I started prioritizing it that I realized how much it filled me up. As women, we need connections, especially with other women. And yes, time with our partners is important too, but we really, we have like hormone releases when we spend time with other women. It's so very important to us. So even if it's like calling your mom, like actually calling her, not texting her, or, coffee with a girlfriend or lunch with, a cousin or whatever, like prioritizing those things really fills up that sort of self-care bucket, and all the chaos can kind of quiet down for a minute. And when we go back to the chaos, we're so much more centered, we're so much more filled up in ourselves that we can handle the chaos so much better. So I would say that's probably one of the most important things, and it's one of the hardest things it is for people to prioritize because it's usually the first thing to go.
And there's a sense of trust, right? Is everything going to be okay with my, let's just say, kids or business if I step away, right? We have this control in us that like only we can do it. And it's actually healing for you and the other person involved, right? The kids, the husband, whoever. But I love self-care. I think going and laughing with your girlfriends. I did it a couple of weeks ago. Like I hadn't gone out with girls, and it was maybe an hour and a half, like not even that long. And I had the best time. And I just was so happy the next day, just laughing and just being a woman and not having the entrepreneur hat, business owner, mom, all the daughter, wife, all the above. It was like I could just go be a girl.
Yeah. Just go be yourself with other women, other girls, and just enjoy that. Yeah. And you were present, I'm guessing. I'm guessing you were very present during that.
100% present, phone off, kids were asleep with my husband. So it was like I didn't have any other responsibilities besides just being there with them. Yes. And I love that you talk about One Thing, that book. The One Thing is such a great book. Like literally we can only do one thing with 100%. I mean, we think about a heart doctor. Do you want a heart doctor to be doing anything else besides working on your heart? It's the same thing, but we don't see it as that, right? We're like, oh, no big deal. I'm just, making dinner and texting at the same time or whatever. But it's like we get to hold ourselves to that level as well.
Exactly.
Yeah. So why don't you share with everybody, why have you taken a sabbatical? I want everyone to hear about this because especially as an entrepreneur and a driven woman, that's very rare to hear someone taking a little time off.
Right. So this December, January, I hit 5 years with my business. And I don't know if it was like the 5-year mark or just a combination of things, or again, just sort of that intuition calling, but I was just feeling really called to step back and to really take more time for myself, for my own spiritual journey, if you will. I feel like last, several months, maybe 6-9 months of my business felt, again, like kind of what we touched on before, like a little bit more forced as opposed to flow. And I wasn't getting the joy and the fulfillment out of it that I had been getting or that I would hope to get. And as an entrepreneur and as a sort of type A achiever person, it was really hard for me to finally get to the point where I was like, you know what, you need to just step away and you need to be okay with what that means. Because, obviously if you step away, you stop building your business, it might suffer. I mean, it obviously will, and a little bit. And so I had to be okay with that and be okay with listening to that. This is what I really truly needed. This is what my soul really needed, and trust that like, however, and whatever happens when I come out the other side of this sabbatical and this time off, that even if my numbers look different or my income looks different or whatever, that it is absolutely going to be for my highest good. And so again, that's sort of releasing that control, right? And it was a really hard decision to come to, but yet at the same time, it was like, I couldn't not listen to what I was being called to do. Yeah. So, I mean, thankfully I have a super supportive husband who was like all about it. I think he sees me sort of get into that sort of stressed out spirally place. I'm like, oh, I need to do more. I need to do. And so he was more than happy to support my decision. But yeah, so I'm just taking time to be really mindful about my sort of stillness, solitude, silence every day. It's sort of my meditation, prayer time, doing some reading. I'm even going to be taking a course. So it's just a time for me to really go inward and hopefully, and I trust that I will get a lot of clarity that I'm seeking for the next sort of stage of my business and my life. And is it going to look different? It might totally take a different turn. I don't know. And again, that was another hard piece for me, as I always need to know. I always feel like I need to know. I'm like, I set a goal and I achieve it. And to not know what the goal is per se of this, other than just sort of self-preservation and self-clarity, was a really hard thing. But I trust fully that it will be revealed to me as I go. So I'm really enjoying time, just quiet time. And yeah, I'm doing other things and I'm happy to, but like just at least spending, 30 to 60 minutes a day was kind of unheard of, just for myself, just in that sort of quiet time, reflective time. So yeah, it's interesting. It's really interesting. We're only about 2 weeks in, but it's kind of cool.
I'm feeling a book. Is going to come out of this. Like I don't know, just what came up for me. I was like, oh man, like the entrepreneur guides to taking off time and what it releases and creates for you, because you've said it multiple times and I get it. As an entrepreneur, business owner, and an athlete, it's like more was always better, right? Especially as an athlete. It was like, if you're struggling in, volleyball, like blocking, then guess what? Go do more blocking reps. It's like more and push, or go lift more, or go do more sprints. And what you're sharing is like, you're taking a step back and like literally opening up your heart more to, okay, God, spirit, creator, universe, what is next for me?
Exactly.
Inward. I love it. So it's inspiring.
Say that, because of course, and I'm like, oh, maybe I should be blogging. Maybe I should be but really trying to just live up to that human being as opposed to a human doing, which is very much the way I'm wired. But I'm really trying to take this time to just be really still with things. And so it is kind of training myself to be a little bit stiller and slower. But I think it's exactly what I need, and it feels really good. So yeah. So
listening to the heart. I love it. I love it. Love it.
Yeah.
So share with us, Katie, what is like one of your top books that are a must to read? So 1, 2, 3 books that would
so many good ones. Back when I first started this little spiritual journey of mine, two things kind of fell into my lap at the same time, and they're in a way they can be more different, because one was really kind of speaking to that Catholicism Christian piece of mine, and that was Falling Upward by Richard Rohr. He is a Catholic priest, but he kind of describes himself on sort of the outer limits of that bubble. So he really opened the door for me to say, oh my gosh, I can have a relationship that I want with God and with the Catholic Church and still be okay. And still, so that was one. Falling Upward was huge. He talks about the first and second halves of life and how we need to sort of step into like a second half of life way of being. Really powerful. And then at the very same time, I started Gabby Bernstein's May Cause Miracles, which is, if you're familiar with Gabby, she's got a ton of books. This is her it's like a 42-day, 6-week thing, and I would just read her day-by-day thing, go meditate on it for a minute, go for a walk. And I felt like by the end of that, I had this huge shift. And so those two right off the bat, anything by Gabby Bernstein, she definitely talks more the universe as opposed to like God, or she'll use the word love or source. I'm trying to think. I have a book club as part of my business, and all we do are read personal development and spiritual books, and they're all on my website. I'm totally blanking on what some of my favorite ones have been. Brene Brown's books have been really helpful to just kind of, especially her work on like vulnerability and shame, because I feel, especially as really go-getters, we feel like if we're not perfect, if we haven't succeeded in whatever we think is success, then we do feel kind of shameful or guilty, or feel vulnerable being ourselves. So yeah, those off the top of my head, I'm like looking at my bookshelf here, trying to see if anything else jumps out at me. But those are some right off the bat. Anything by Richard Rohr, Gabby Bernstein, when it comes to sort of this sort of awakening and transformation.
Someone else recommended The Universe Has Your Back, and I have not read that yet. And I'm like, okay, ordering that. That's one of the next ones. I just hold on, it's over there. Shoot, it's a Marianne Williamson. A
Return to Love?
No, Blue Book. Hold on, I'm gonna grab it because it's not good. I started it last night. This is real life, people. The Law of Divine Communication.
I haven't read that one.
And Miracles. Yeah, a friend recommended it, and I was just like, I just always ask because I love reading books, and I feel like we get so much. There's so much we can learn just by reading. It's like, this is a free resource. You can go to the library, pick up a book. You don't even have to buy it,
Totally. Also, it's so funny because I feel like a lot of these personal development, spiritual development authors, everybody has pretty much, give or take, a general similar message, but everybody has a very different way of relaying that message. And so really finding an author that resonates with you. And so, for example, I don't know if you're familiar with the Jen Sincero, You Are a Badass books.
Yes, I love those books.
They're so great, and they're so funny, and she's so dry and sarcastic, and like laugh out loud as you're reading the book. But yet at the end of the day, it's a very similar message to Gabby's and all like law of attraction type people, but it really resonates for people who just like feel like that stuff's too deep, or they're just not ready for it, or they're not jiving with it. Like, pick up that book. You will like be so entertained, and you'll get great messages from that one too. So
I would say even try it in audio, because I both the audio, just to hear her voice say it is hilarious.
I did both mine on Audible, so yeah. It's hilarious. Yeah.
Oh, thank you for those shares. Well, thank you so much, Katie, for today. This has just been incredible and so much information to share with everyone. I know you have a gift for everybody, so if you want to take a moment here, you can share that, where they can find out about you, more information about you as well.
Yeah, I have a 10 easy ways for deepening your own spiritual connection. I think a lot of us, again, feel like we have to like go back to church to start this process. Obviously, if you've listened this far, you know that's not the case. But some of it's really obvious and things that you wouldn't necessarily even think. So it's like 10 easy ways, things that might jump out at you and be like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about it. I'm going to go do that right now in my kitchen or whatever. And so that's just a fun way to kind of get started and to get those wheels turning for you. And then, yeah, you can find me at katiegarces.com, and my Sexy Spiritual Sane group is on Facebook, but I'll make sure you have the link, and that is open to anyone. There's several hundred women in there, kind of all jiving with the same ideas and really supporting each other in a really awesome, holistic, supportive way. So, and then if you wanted to, I also have a intuitive eating, super inexpensive program, if that's something that kind of got your attention during the conversations. We've talked a lot about the intuitive piece, and that's something that really changed me. I was finally able to stop dieting and really make friends with food, and so I share that in the program as well.
Oh, so powerful. If we can just see that food is love, it's a way to love ourselves versus like, doesn't have to be this nasty relationship, but
yes,
it is life-changing. I mean, I was miserable before, and now I can just like, I can go have a pint of ice cream and I have no guilt. I'm like, yeah, that was good. And then I'm back on track the next day.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So
well, just to wrap it up here, I'd love for you to share what are 1 to 3 ways for people to really step in and own their power. And it might be, a little bit of what we talked about, but just what are some things that stick out to you to really, what are the steps to like creating and owning your power?
Yeah, I think that it's really easy for us to get into sort of comparison mode with other people that we think maybe are more successful than us or have stepped into their power more than us. And I want to remind people that when you see greatness in other people, or when you see something that you're like, oh, I wish I had that. Like if you see it in somebody else, it's only because it's a reflection of already in you, so that you can recognize that fact and then tap into that place in you where that's coming from, because you would not see it in the other person if it wasn't already in yourself. You can tap into that, then you're already like light years ahead of so many other people, and you are going to be able to step into that power. And if it's hard for you to tap into that, that's when I invite you to really just start taking some time in stillness and silence every day if possible, even if it starts with 2 minutes, just trying to quiet your mind. Any sort of, if it's an outdoor walk, if it's a true meditation, whatever it may be for you, just finding that space and getting a little still and letting that inner intuition, that guidance that's inside of you, it's inside of all of us, let that sort of bubble up, because it will once we can quiet this down a little bit. Practice. But I think everybody has their own powers and their own ways to shine, and it's just so important that we realize they're unique. And if we can tap into what ours is and be really authentic with that, then there's no way that you can't step into that fully.
Thank you so much for sharing that. I love that. And I just want to take a minute here and acknowledge you, Katie, and just say thank you for the woman that you are, the woman that you stand for everybody to become the best version of themselves in a happy, sane way, but also just being you. Like, you are a ray of light, and just so grateful that we were able to connect and share your gifts today. So thank you.
Oh, thank you so much for that. It was great to talk to you.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, take care.
Awesome. Thank you for joining me in the Own Your Power series, How to Be a Badass at Training Your Body, Mind, and Soul to create the life and legacy of your dreams. Stay tuned as we have another episode tomorrow to empower you to strengthen your body, mind, and soul to achieve anything and everything you are committed to in your life. And share the love by forwarding this to someone who you know that this would make an impact for. All right, I'll see you guys back tomorrow.